More bad news is coming down the pipeline for Disney and Marvel right now. I have this article pulled up from Variety right here. Marvel VFX workers unanimously vote to unionize with IATSE. Now, right now in this article, it does point out that this marks the first time a unit solely of VFX workers has unionized with IATSE, and that's the International Alliance of Theatrical Stage Employees. Scrolling further down, that it does say, like right here in this third paragraph, that the vote was held between August 21st and September 11th. They were counted on the 12th, and it was unanimous with all of them actually voting in favor of unionizing. Right here, this paragraph, the votes come at a time when Marvel's movies like this year's lukewarm Ant-Man and the Wasp: Quantumanium and other special effects heavy blockbusters like Spider-Man Across the Spider-Verse have been under fire for the large workload and tight deadlines placed on VFX teams. So far, Marvel Studios is the only in-house VFX team unionized with IATSE, but Walt Disney Pictures VFX staffers recently moved to Unionize in late August. And I think this is actually an important note to have in this because it could be detrimental to the VFX workers moving forward because, like it says, this is the only in-house VFX team to actually vote to unionize. All members of it voted to unionize because, like I said, it was a unanimous decision. And I did talk about this. It doesn't say in this article, but I did a video about this back in early August when this news first came out that they were going to have this vote to unionize. And it said it's around 50 or so workers within this. So keep in mind, this is visual effects within Hollywood. And right now there's about 50 workers who might set the stage of like, our studio is going to start having to pay more for VFX in this time when those are like some of the more expensive parts of their budgets. And we're seeing these huge budget movies coming out, and now 50 people are more or less saying like, you're going to have to start paying more from that. And I think other VFX studios are looking at this, especially in-house ones are looking at this and are seeing like, okay, what's going to happen with these ones? And that's why I think it could be dangerous for these workers moving forward. But I do have this other article from Bounding into Comics pulled up talking about this same issue right now. And I think this is also something important to highlight about this. This information is coming from a guy named Zach Mulligan, who's a VFX production coordinator for a lot of these movies and things like that. And he went on his personal TikTok account to kind of give his input on this. So right now, just listen to what he says here. So even if you look at movies like Avatar: The Way of Water that took 10 years to work on the technology and just develop the VFX that looked this amazing, you might think the takeaway from studios would be, well, if we spend more time working on the VFX, they might actually look good, right? The former Black Adam production coordinator then rhetorically raised to his audience, let me fill you in on a little secret. Movie studios don't care about the good CGI. They don't. The only thing they care about is pleasing their shareholders on the next earnings call. To them, they've managed to increase the output of superhero movies that are still making billions of dollars, and they've reduced the time it takes to make them. He elaborated, studios could easily space out the projects to give these super talented and hardworking VFX artists more time to work on the film, but that's not in the best interest of the shareholders. Instead, they increase the pressure on these artists to deliver faster and faster results, no pun intended. Scrolling down, drawing his thoughts to a close, Mulligan ultimately admitted, when you're putting out this many projects with shorter turnarounds, the VFX will always look worse. And this is ultimately why I think this isn't good for the artists to do this move right now, because like it rightly points out, the studios don't necessarily care if the results are good. They just want to make sure it's good enough, even if it looks bad in a lot of situations. I mean, something like this is like, that's not good. But I think honestly, the concept of it, I mean, a third eye like that, I don't really know how you can make that look good. But I mean, I think they did the best they could. But I mean, that still looks pretty bad in my personal opinion. But I mean, again, like that's not really the artist's fault. I mean, that's just either a lack of time or just just sometimes the concept of something is too silly to actually look good. But the lack of time thing is a huge factor in a lot of these bad CGI things that we see in movies. Because I mean, just to think about it in this way, like if you were asked to draw a picture of a dog and you told like you have 1 minute to do it, it's probably not going to look as good as if you were told you have an hour to do it or you had a day to do it. And that's what people need to consider with these VFX workers, because Zach Mulligan points out in his video that a lot of times they're just not given the time to do this. As a result, they're more or less given a contract, like kind of like a flat fee to do so many shots, and the shots get more complicated, or the studio makes revisions and they do reshoots and other things like that, and the studio still has to kind of produce the results within the time frame that they agreed to for the wage that they agreed to. And as a result, they're rushing with little to no like paid actually doing this. And then the results are things like this. Cause I mean, if you're not getting paid, where it's like, well, you already got your fee or whatever, and you've done your work, and now you're pretty much not being paid to produce this because you promised that you had to do that. Well, this is the results that you get as a reason for that. And it's not good, but I think this could be bad for the VFX workers, because this is coming at a time, well, not only the strikes are going on, but Disney CEO Bob Iger says they want to specifically cut costs for Marvel movies and things like that, because they've been ballooning just out of proportion, just ridiculously in the last few years. I mean, they're like $200-300 million to produce these movies, and a large part of that is the VFX budget for these movies. And now you got the VFX artists, or you have 50 VFX artists, not only threatening to increase the cost of that, but I mean, that could potentially have a ripple effects throughout the industry. So Marvel is in a situation right now, they're like, are we just going to oblige them and pay them more? And then other VFX studios will start thinking that they can start demanding more, and it will increase the cost of this even more than we're trying to reduce it right now. Or they can be like, okay, we'll pay them more, but we're going to have to change how we make our movies and do significantly less VFX. We're going to have to not have as many reshoots and stuff like that. Or a third option is be like, okay, we'll just fire all these people and replace them. Now, obviously, that's not necessarily an easy thing to do. I mean, this isn't like writers where there's 100 of them for everyone that's on strike right now. I mean, these are VFX artists, and while they have said that they're not interested in striking, they just want to negotiate better deals and things like that, which, I mean, I'm completely sympathetic to them. I understand why they're doing this, and I agree that they should probably be paid more for what they're actually doing, or given better working conditions. The fact of the matter is they are still replaceable. I mean, no one is irreplaceable in this industry. I mean, and even though like the artists that they could potentially hire to replace them might not be as good. I mean, we've already established that the studios don't care about that. I mean, they could be like, well, they're just good enough. But obviously, it's going to be an issue to try to replace 50 workers. So they could think like, okay, if they just want a little bit increase, or if they're not asking too much and it's not going to cost us too much, then I think they will do it. But I mean, they're more or less looking at the numbers like, this is the cost it is to replace them. This is the cost it'll be to give them what they want. And if they'll basically do whatever's the cheapest option. So if it's cheaper just to replace them, then that's ultimately what Disney is going to choose to do. And it might be bad for these VFX artists, because if they get fired, it's like, well, where are they going to go after this? I mean, is another studio going to want to hire them if these are the people that voted to unionize or whatever, to try to demand more money? I mean, probably not. And other studios or other VFX workers in the industry are probably going to be like, well, last time a group like Warner Brothers, the VFX in-house people at Warner Brothers are like, well, working on DC movies are like, well, maybe we shouldn't vote to unionize because the people over at Marvel did that and they all got fired, so maybe we shouldn't do that. Or that you can see how this could be a potential effect. So I think Marvel and Disney might be pressured to not negotiate with them and just be like, nope, we're going to get rid of you. And I can really see that happening, even though that's not necessarily the right move in my opinion. I can see them doing that because, yeah, I mean, it's a business. They're just trying to make money and appease their shareholders. They don't care about the quality. And if that means they're going to have to bring in some less talented but yet capable people to work instead, then I think that they're going to do that. But let me know what you think about all this in the comment section below. And if you like this video, make sure you click that like button, share the video, and subscribe to the channel if you want to stay up to date with the latest news. Thank you.